Samuel, who's going to be talking about Django. Some of you may have encountered Django a few days ago at the Django Day, or know about Django already. It's for making web applications with Python. And Samuel's going to be talking about using Django to work with sports scoreboards. Please, big welcome.
Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is actually Samuel, and well, this is actually like my first time, ever doing like a speech here. Last year actually did like a lightning talk, and if you were around, you would have remembered that I was really speaking like super fast. It's because like I had a lot of information, so yeah, it was a little bit horrible. But what I'll be speaking about is essentially WebSocket and Django. Who here has ever played a sport? With a raise of hands, okay, I'll select you. Okay, what exactly? Rugby. Okay, so whatever the sport, you would know that whenever there is an event in a match, an example of an event is like there is a foul, there is a goal, or anything in that line. The supporters would wanna know exactly when it happens. For instance, like if you're at home, there is an application you are looking at which has the details of a match, and you would look at what exactly is happening in the match as it is happening. So I will elaborate more on what is a WebSocket. Yeah, but I have to share a little bit about myself. That's me, you can already see that. So I'm in year number 4 at NAS University here. So I'm actually a local here. And what are my hobbies? Football. So when I was younger, I used to play a lot of football, like a lot, nearly every day. And I'd assumed that I would have ended up like Ronaldo. Yeah, but you obviously know there's a lot of excuses now, a knee injury and whatnot. Yeah, but with me, I like lost, the passion of it. So that's what actually happened. So I eventually went and opened the YouTube account. I also opened the TikTok account, and I look at a lot of other things there, which I'll be speaking on a little bit later. And lastly, I'm a high and I'm an achiever that's really high. Okay, I don't know if that was it right, sorry. But I work really hard, okay? That's another thing. Okay, you can see a little bit about myself. There's my dog named Ruby. She's nearly 9 years old. That's me there. Okay, so the problem, okay? So essentially the problem about these applications, specifically for sports, are that, or the flow essentially is, we have an administrator that logs in the match events, okay? So there is a foul, there's a person who receives a yellow card, so the administrator logs it in. Then the user now waits and sees, okay, what's happening. So the problem is, if we weren't using WebSockets, what will happen is you would be always refreshing your application. So you would always make a lot of requests. So that is an issue. So it's really wasteful, and your server will have an issue. So the solution essentially is WebSockets. So how it works essentially, and what is the difference between this and normal, HTTP? Who is lost at the moment? If you have a question, make sure you actually raise your hand. It's because these I'm not so sure the people in high school would really have an understanding on. Yeah, but I can explain. So what is actually HTTP? this is actually the protocol which is used on the internet, specifically for making requests and responses, okay? That's like super simple. So what actually happens is, you are the client, you make a request. So a request is like, you are visiting a website, you are writing a message and whatnot, okay, so this is a request. The server will return a response, which is the website, which you'll see on your screen. That's the response. Then the connection will be terminated, okay? That's it. So now we have a WebSocket, nearly the same. You request, then the server will make a handshake. Then this is our connection here. The connection will be persistent. One example of how this is an example, Daniela is here and I say, hello, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Okay, so if he was the server, and an example, the computer is me, right? If we are here, right, that is the end. He has responded and it's the end, and we need another request and response, which is an issue. Yeah, but if we are speaking about long stories, we will need a WebSocket so that we are just sending back and forth and we know what we are speaking about. So it's like this, it's an open way. So I can even say 6 sentences and he would have one response, and he may respond also in a minute and a half, 1 hour later, whereas in here, there is a limit of how long you can wait for a response. All right, so that's where we use WebSockets specifically. Now,
sorry, so just to continue the example you gave, if you said, in the top case, you said to me, as you said before, you said hello.
Hello, Daniel.
Hello, Samuel. I'll be here waiting to hear if you have anything more to ask me. So I'll just be around waiting for your questions.
Yes, 100%. So then he will be waiting and listening. So he's listening. Remember that he's listening and waiting on my response. If he assumes, okay, isn't anymore willing, to wait, he may leave if he wants, okay? That's that, okay? Now, how does this work with Django, and how is it linked with what I've worked on? So essentially at a university, we had a project where we were developing a system for the hockey union. So essentially, this is an application where we have, everybody who's involved in hockey. So these are the managers, the players, and also the teams, and also the matches, and you can actually see what is happening in this league. So what is DRF? Who knows that? If you actually answer that and you are in high school, I have a little bit of money for you. DRF. Okay, what is D for?
Django.
Okay, so who will answer that for me?
Does it have to be a learner, or are you asking for anyone?
The learners.
The learners.
Yeah, but then anybody is able to answer. Looks like they don't know.
Django REST framework.
Django REST framework. So essentially, the framework is used to build your essential APIs. So an API, okay, I would have to explain that at the end though. But okay, that is more lightweight than if you'd be using Django specifically. Okay, so we have an administrator, your administrator writes an event. There was a foul, and then it now reaches the match event model. Okay, and then it now writes this, and then it reaches Django here. And what actually happens here is we have groups and also the consumers. I'll explain a lot more on that. And then we have the WebSocket and then the Flutter application. The Flutter is how you can make like a mobile application, essentially. It's a framework. Okay, sorry. Now, the demo. I hope. Okay, this is the system here. So I want it a little bit more like live, so you can actually like see like what's actually happening. Okay, so right here I'm logged in as an administrator, and right here I'm logged in as a normal user, which will be just like you guys here. So essentially what will happen here is I'll make a league, and then after that I will like make a match and actually show you how it actually works, and you can actually see what is a WebSocket. Okay. So we can press on leagues. Why is my cursor working? Leagues, I'll make a new league for right now, okay? Sorry. 2026, Namibia. Sorry for my typing. Okay, the season we will say 26, 27. The date, mind you, the bugs are a little bit a lot in here, but we won't really reach them. The year 2026, the month is February, the day 26, am I right? I hope I'm right. 27, 02, 20, no, 26. The status should be running because it's today. Okay, so we have a new league right there. Then we select that, then we can add the teams. So these are the teams we already have in the system. Mind you, this is like locally, okay? So yeah, we will select University of Namibia, we can add, okay? And then we can also select Wanderers, and we can also add. So these are the teams which are there. Now I will make a match actually. Okay, let me go to fixtures. Not there. The fixture. Home. These are the teams we have in our league. We select Wanderers at home, University of Namibia away. The day will be today. The venue, where are we? Nipam. Okay, I'll put here Nipam, the venue. Okay, create fixture. Okay, so the fixture is right there. We can make it live. Okay, right here. Okay, update. All right. Now, on the user side now, let me just refresh, should update and show us the match. You can see that there is a match right there. UNAM and Wanderers. Okay, so we can enter the match there and actually see what's up there. So that's the match. Now, where the magic actually happens is right, hold on, give me a second, here. So an example, okay, maybe you know there is a goal, okay? So we can say, okay, there is a goal and it's me specifically who has to score the goal, okay, no assister. We say the time is 25 and the team UNAM, okay, yeah, that's another bug I have to fix, sorry guys, okay. And then that's done, and then you can update the score, update, and you can see it's now 1-0, and it happened right now, immediately. Did you see that? Okay, so I'll repeat it again, okay? This is the user, it's you guys here. This is me, who is an administrator, and I'm and I'm actually watching at the match, and I'm actually looking at what's happening, and wow, there is a goal. So let's maybe say there was a foul. VAR is like, nah, that's wrong. So then we can remove the goal, and if you watch on your right there, you should see it should immediately update. Okay. Now, to be a bit more technical, right here, there is a connection here that was opened right there. I hope you can see.
Can you
Is
make
everybody?
it, can you make it larger?
Okay, no problem. Control plus, right?
Yeah, should be. Yeah.
This. Okay. Let me try closing this first. Okay. The connection made. Okay, yeah, here. There was a connection which was actually opened. So this is exactly like how when we were speaking here, you know, there was a connection that was already opened, and this is what is actually happening during. Okay, so 1 0 0 0, we are speaking, and he is actually listening and waiting on these events. Now, for instance, now he is exhausted, maybe like he has an errand he should run. Okay, so he will now leave the app. Okay, so once he like leaves from here, he leaves at the match, you would see under here the connection is closed right there. All right, so that's essentially what a WebSocket is. Now, if I have also to be a bit more technical, okay, sorry. Okay, so this is the match event. So essentially, this is a model which represents the events. So what is a model? So essentially, this is what you would see in the database, specifically the fields attributes which are right here. This should represent in the database, and it has a lot more which I wouldn't really explain more. But as you can see, these are the match events right there which we have. So there is a function here that once an event happens, they need to be saved. Then what will actually happen? So there is a group. Let me explain what is a group. So a group is essentially like a room, okay? So you guys are the consumers, you are the listeners. So Daniele is the listener, okay? So when he walks in this room, he's listening and he's actually waiting for an event. And if an event will happen, he can actually hear it and actually react, okay? So that's what's happening, okay? So as long as you're in the specific match, you are in the group, which is the specific room, okay? Now, these are the other functions for the consumer, which is you, specifically Daniela, and whoever else is in the room or had walked in the room. There you make the connection. This is what you would actually receive, and you could also disconnect, and also this is whenever there is a match update, which we had seen in there, and here is where there is a match event specifically. So that is the consumer. So essentially, what is ASGI. This is an asynchronous server that allows you to run WebSockets and also HTTP and a lot more actually. So that is what it is. Alright, I think that's all that I can explain, and if you have a question, you can actually ask. Feel free to ask.
Thank you very much, Samuel. Do we have some questions in the audience?
Yeah, so I love WebSockets. Let me just start with that. But question is, for that specific application, is there a reason you chose WebSockets over like server-sent events? Since you really only need to receive rather than, you don't need that bi-directional way.
Okay, well, I mean, this was nearly the second project which I've used with it. I've already like worked with Apache Kafka, if you know about that, yeah, the consumers and whatnot. The reason I'd used this is because essentially that's what I'd known, so yeah, so I'd used that. Yeah, but if I would optimize, I would actually use what you had explained, which meaning that it's only one way. It's because this essentially is only one way. It's because the user isn't essentially writing an event, which you had identified. Thank you for that, Ben.
Do we have any more questions? I have a question actually. Could you go back to the view where you were showing us these the requests in the browser?
Okay, no problem.
I wonder if you could explain what GET and POST and WebSocket are for. Do people know what GET and POST and are? No, okay. I think that could be quite interesting.
Okay, so these are essentially the types of requests you can actually make, and let us begin with the first one. The first one is really easy to explain, okay? GET essentially means that you are receiving or you are requesting a resource from the server. For instance, you need a website, specifically the page of a website, you would request it and then you would receive it. So you aren't actually modifying, or you aren't actually sending information to the server specifically. You are only requesting. And then the post request essentially is exactly the same, except now you are writing information. Okay, so you are writing new information, and then you would receive a response that, okay, this information was written and it's all right. Or you would also receive more information depending on what the developer had written as a response.
Can you give an example of that we would use in every day of making a GET request? What would be a good example of doing that if I'm using a web browser?
On a browser specifically?
Yeah.
Okay, specifically if you went on Instagram, on the browser, you wrote www.instagram, and then essentially you are making a request so that you can receive the page, the home. So once you receive it, and then it will appear on your browser.
And what would be an everyday example of my making a post request?
You like making a post request is when you log in. So essentially you write your credentials, then they will be sent, then after that you would receive a response. So what exactly happens in the back is your credentials will be looked at, as in like whether they are right or wrong. If it's wrong, and then you would receive, like a negative response, and then yeah.
So I think this app of yours is quite cool, and it will be good if you polish it more. So if you approach any like leagues to use your app, or do you intend of just like using it for hockey, as you said, it's gonna be useful?
Well, what you're actually asking is really, interesting. It's because when we're at the university, they were the ones who had approached us, specifically the Union of Namibia for hockey. They had approached us, so their requirements were a bit vague, I can say, yeah, but if it was improved, maybe they would have wanted it. Another option which I'm looking at is maybe to pivot, meaning that reuse exactly this application in another way, maybe for rugby. Maybe that union would actually want it and need it. Looking at also the demand, it's not really as necessary. It's because other applications already exist. Yeah, but I will look at it.
I wanted to ask, like, now how would the admins get the results of the matches and things like that, and how fast would it take, for example, the person that maybe at the match send it to the admins so they can update the app?
Oh, so you saw exactly the way that I was working with it, like on my phone. So the way you like log in on your WhatsApp or your, Instagram. So an administrator, essentially has a username and a password. So as long as he has internet at the match, he is also watching at the match. He or she is watching at the match. Immediately once a match event happens, a foul or whatnot, they immediately update it, and it happens immediately.
I think updating it manually would take a lot of time. So my suggestion is that, like, if you could integrate like a camera to detect certain like gestures and all that, so that like the system responds much faster.
Yeah, per se, it is a nice idea, and I also like look into it eventually. Maybe even research on it, is because eventually I might research like on a master's and whatnot. Yeah, but it is a nice idea that I can actually implement.
Setting difficult challenges for him. Do we have any more questions, Sheena?
So I'm curious about how the server keeps track of all of the WebSockets. Because like, let's say that this thing is ridiculously popular. We have, I don't know, like 1,000 fans looking at their app. Would Django then need to keep track of 1,000 apps and update each one? Like, do you know how it works under the hood?
Well, I'm not exactly an expert. I mean, university still have to be honest. Yeah, but what I will explain is that we have Redis. If you know what Redis is, it's specifically, it is for, if you'd assist me, it is for...
So it's a database?
Yes, it is essentially, it is a database, specifically like a dictionary database. What is actually happening right now is we are using the memory specifically, so it's in the RAM. Yeah, but if you'd like, you could also use Redis,
Okay.
which would actually support a lot more users and whatnot. And also, if also an example is, if you are on your cell phone, for instance, and how should I say it? One example is when the server is working, whenever there's an interruption, if you only use your RAM, you would actually lose the information. Whereas if you'd use Redis, this information is actually held there, so you wouldn't actually lose this information. One example is whenever like you're on your cell phone, for instance, and you're on Wi-Fi and you switch the networks. Yeah, so they use, things like that. Though I'm not an expert on that, so yeah, but I have at least an understanding on that.
Okay, big thank you to Samuel.
Thank you guys. You can just do that. I have a website which has all of my links, LinkedIn, YouTube, and also TikTok, especially TikTok. I have already interviewed a few of the speakers, so you should see them, I don't know, this weekend or eventually. The rest of the speakers, if you are also interested, I could also interview you over Zoom or even after the meeting. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.